do you know Warhammer? It's a
The
game.
game?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tabletop game. Yeah, Warhammer.
Yeah.
The company that owns that, it's called Games Workshop, and they invented Warhammer I think actually in 1984, same year the Macintosh computer came out. So smash cut to Steve Jobs up on stage yelling at an engineer, being like, "Go find the tools of the office," to some men in an apartment in England painting little figurines. This is all happening at the same time. So Warhammer is like comparable to Dungeons and Dragons. It has a
Yeah.
very obsessive fan base. People are very
Huge.
excited. Yeah. But unlike Dungeons and Dragons, there's a huge collector element to this because you buy the figurines and then they need to be painted. So that's a big, so there's like a whole cohort of people who they just want to collect figurines. They don't want to play the game. And then there's people who are actually just obsessed with the lore of it, because built around all of these games is Tolkien, like Lord of the Rings, like stories. They have magazines, they have books, they have video games now, audio series. Like it's a huge thing. It's a world. It's definitely one of those things of like when you're outside of it, you're like, whatever. And then as soon as you're in it, it consumes your entire life. But it turns out that this business is just raking in the cash because it is completely vertically integrated. Who knew? And obviously, like a big part of this is culture, is community, is maintaining that aspect. So they have a bunch of in-person retailers that they own. They own 526 in-person retailers all across the globe. 399 of those in-person retailers have one employee, the store manager. Because
Wow.
it's meant to be this place, where little fans go in and they get to buy their figurines, or they get to have little meetups, or they get to go in and play the game. It's like a little community space. It's a third space for people who love Warhammer.
Yeah,
And they were like, you
and
only need,
you're cultivating your experience completely
yeah.
by owning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, so we only need one employee. So all of their locations are profitable. All of them turn a profit, which is
Wow.
crazy. So it means that they have a gross margin. Hold on. Turn away for that one. It means that they have a gross margin of 68% and an operating margin of 36%. The company does. And they can
This is
pay,
for a retailer
yeah,
basically, which is
a
nuts.
retailer.
Yeah,
They can pay a 4% annual dividend.
it's huge. And
And all they do is make figurines.
we saw the chart you had in this week's Charging and Fearless as well. The
Yeah.
return on capital employed is in the three figures, I think, for the last couple of years. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2023, 133%.
Yeah, so that works. That works
Yeah.
in most places.
Wow. That is
Absolutely
amazing.
crazy. Yeah.
And it's a refreshing business model insofar as it's anti-digital. It's moving away from screens. It's going back to a form of gaming and community that existed in the 70s and in the 80s and when I was in college in the 90s. And there's something really, for me, nostalgic about it, even though I never really played Dungeons and Dragons at all. And I certainly never played Games Workshop's game. What is it?
Warhammer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's something about it that appeals to me as a virtuous investment,
Yeah.
because it's good old fashioned being a human.
Yeah. And here's the best part about it, right? They just signed a contract this year for a TV show with Amazon.
Really?
And it's going to go to
Wow.
Amazon Prime, and it's in pre-production at the minute. They're figuring it out. And tied to it, and a producer in it, and I think he's going to star in it, is Henry Cavill, who played Superman very famously, because he, for the last like 10 years, he's obsessed with Warhammer, and he talks about it all the time, like in a lot of like in any interview he gives, he says, the number one thing I do when I'm off is I go and I play Warhammer. And so it means that fans are obsessed with him because they feel really like he is the responsible person to take up this venture. And so I think it'll be good for fans, but I also think we've had a lot of video games get adapted recently. We've had a lot of books get adapted recently, fantasy worlds, science fiction worlds, that then get these massive, bigger, much larger cult followings. Like think of Game of Thrones. That went from like a niche book series that people who read really, really loved to absolutely everybody on the planet knew about it. So if Warhammer 40K, which is the game that's getting adapted into a TV series, if that goes like The Last of Us and becomes very, very popular, it's going to funnel in a whole bunch of people into this world. And this world is primarily merchandise based. So that's going to be a huge bump to revenue. So very exciting times for Games Workshop. That being said, lots of people have taken notice of these exciting times. Current price to earnings is 29, which is expensive.
Well, it didn't put off the CEO Kevin Roundtree from putting in 300 grand's worth into the shares in August.
Yeah, at the beginning of this month, picked up 300K. So, yeah, definitely something to look at. Kind of a fun one. In my brain, actually, when I was writing this up, I was wondering if it would get picked up by a media conglomerate down the line. It reminds me a lot of like Marvel of that thing of, you know, Marvel had decades and decades of building up its stories, of having this legacy, of having characters that people who were in that universe really, really loved. And then as soon as they were bought by Disney, it was like this massive accelerant of, we can get Iron Man in front of millions and billions of people. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to get them picked up. But even just as a standalone business, it generates so much cash. It's like being handled so responsibly. They're obviously very good at curating their community. So yeah, very impressive.